Hello again, gamers. Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm the Captain, and today I'm going to be reviewing and showing you how to play Dragon and Rider. So Dragon and Rider is over on Kickstarter right now. I'm going to have a link to the Kickstarter in the description down below so you can go check it out. But I want to start off by thanking the designer and the publisher. The designer is William Umstad. I found his name in the back of the book. Big tip. Put the designer's name on the box. Should definitely have your name on the box. And the publisher, Stone Table Games, I want to thank you guys for sending me this copy of Dragon and Rider to check out, to play and film this review with. So they've told me that this copy is going to be what the production copy is going to be. The only thing that's missing is the barcode. Other than that, everything else is final. So if you back it on Kickstarter, this is exactly what you're going to get. So I'm going to be able to give this a full review. Before we get too into this, though, I do want to say I've got a ton of links in the description down below that you can check out at your leisure. There's a link to BoardGameCaptain.com, which is a great hub for all things Board Game Captain. There's also a link to my Patreon. If you're in a position to and would like to support the channel, you can join my Patreon, link in the description down below. And there's also a link to my Teespring store where you can get cool Board Game Captain merchandise, gamer gear, like t-shirts like this one here that says buy me board games and tell me I'm pretty, as well as other shirts and mugs linked in the description down below. All right, so let's start with the fact that this says 30 minutes, 2 or 4 players, and ages 14 and up. So now, in regard to the 30 minutes, I generally prefer a range. This is not a bad estimate, but a range would be better. It could go a bit longer or a little shorter, so maybe like a 20 to 40 minute range would be good, but 30 minutes is not a bad estimate. Now, the 2 or 4 players, I have a little bit of a gripe with this. So this game is obviously, when you read the rules, 100% meant to be played at 4 players. The regular game is 4 players and 4 players only. There are 2 variants in the back, one of which changes one of the fundamental rules of the game, and the other of which alters it to be a 2-player game. But in both cases, I do feel that those variants take away one of the more brilliant parts of this game. So really, this is a 4-player game. Now, in regard to the ages 14 and up, this is not a bad estimate, because while the rules are easy, a lot of the interplay of the rules can be a bit advanced. There's a lot going on, and younger players may have trouble with it. However, a younger player in a household full of gamers that routinely gets games above their own age recommendation might be okay with this game. There's just, like I said, there's a lot of numbers and a lot of stats to keep track of. Now, let me show you what comes with the game. So you've got a rule book here. Now, the rule book is very well done. It is full color, and they have lots of illustrations and diagrams to show you how things work in the game, show you how to set up, where to play the cards. Really well done rule book, especially considering there's some pretty interesting and bizarre concepts in here. The way the rule book is done with charts and diagrams is really good. Big thumbs up for me on the rule book. I really don't think this rule book needs much else before production, actually. I was quite happy with it. Next, when you open up the box, now it's a bit of a tuck box. So now I can be a little hit or miss with tuck boxes, but this tuck box is sealed on the bottom, so there's no chance of accidentally sliding cards into the slot and having them fall out. So that's good. And then also, as you can see, there's lots of extra space in here. I've used the extra space to put in a couple of these glass gem counters to use for the life total. It doesn't come with counters. Very minor gripe. I do like games to come with everything you need. But I mean, if you're a gamer, you've got stuff around. And even if you're not a gamer, I mean, you could find a dime or something to use as a counter. It's not a big deal. But yeah, there's plenty of room in here for what comes in the game, which are the cards. So for the cards, you get these 2-sided, they're nice and shiny, slick finish. These 2-sided life counters. Now these are you start at 35 life. There is the ability to get more than 35 life, and also, of course, to take damage and get less. And in each area of this, it has a little reminder, because as you take damage, you start to deal less damage. Your damage gets reduced by your life tracker. And then when you get all the way down to your last 5 hit points, you actually get a boost to your damage. You get to do +2 damage as a last-ditch effort to help try to win the game of Dragon and Rider. Now you've got 2 of these, obviously, 1 for each of the teams, because this game is meant to be played 2 on 2. Then in addition, we have these very nice quick reference sheets, these old cheat sheets for all the rules. I love these quick reference sheets, and my favorite part about them is there are 4 of them, and this game is meant to be played at 4 players, so you've got 1 for every player. So this is fantastic. I hate it when people don't give you enough quick reference sheets. Yeah, big kudos on getting 4 quick reference sheets. Then we have the actual cards that you use for play. Now the cards are differentiated by the color on the backs of the cards. You have red and you have blue, and that is because you have a red team and a blue team. You play 2 on 2, where one member of each team is the dragon and the other member is the rider. So for the rider gets 3 rider cards, just 3 cards, and that is all they need to play. And the 3 rider cards are their different attacks they can do. So they have a charge attack, a ranged attack, and a dodge. Now the dragon gets 6 cards. So if you're playing with one more experienced gamer or one less experienced player, I do recommend that the more experienced player play the dragon. The dragon gets 3 stance cards. All the card groups are categorized as dodge, charge, attack, and range. And then they also have 3 attack cards themselves, which again are charge, attack, ranged, and dodge. So it's all the same 3 cards. One thing I really like about this, I'm going to talk a little more about this in the review, is the illustrations on the attack cards, because you play them next to each other on the board. From the rider and the dragon, when placed next to each other, regardless of which ones they played, will always create a illustration together when placed on the table, which is really cool. So that's everything that comes in the box of the Dragon and Rider. Now we're going to head over to the table, and I'm going to run you through a full round to show you how you play Dragon and Rider. Okay, so here we are set up to play a 2-on-2 game of Dragon and Rider. So in order to set up, you have to put out your life point cards out here in the middle of the table and place a token or marker on your starting life total of 35 life points. Once you have done that, you are ready to play. Each player is dealt out their cards. So the Rider players each get 3 cards. 3 cards that are their different possible attacks, and the Dragon players get 6 cards, 3 that are for their stances, and another 3 that are for their attacks. And that's all you have to do to set up the game of Dragon and Rider. Now the first phase of each round is the Dragon stance phase. During this phase, each team's Dragon will pick a stance card and play them face down to the left of their life point total. Once they're both played, they flip them face up, and we're going to see what stances we have. So I've picked we both picked ranged. So now the stance will only come into effect as long as the actual action you do matches the stance. So in this case, if either of us actually do a ranged attack, and as long as your opponent does not counter your ranged attack, which this game plays with a rock, paper, scissors mechanic, where ranged attacks are countered by dodge, ranged attacks themselves counter charges, and charges counter dodge. So now the next part of the round is when the Rider players will each pick their attack and play it face down beneath and a little to the right of the hit point card. Then they will each simultaneously reveal, when they are ready to, one card that they did not play. So they have chosen to show us all that we are not doing a ranged attack. So those ranged attack stances will not be coming into effect this round because neither team is doing a range. So now this gets really, really interesting. Now the next phase is that both of the Dragon players will play face down their chosen attack, at which point everyone can reveal what the chosen attacks were. And after revealing it, the revealed card that was not from the Rider will be discarded. Now you look at the initiatives of the cards. Now Lynn and I have both done charge attacks, so since we've both done charge attacks, we're definitely doing a charge attack. But on the case of our opponents, one chose to do a dodge while the other chose to do a charge, which means that they have to go for the higher initiative. So since charge has an initiative of 3, as shown in the center of the card, while the dodge only has an initiative of 1, they will also be doing a charge attack. Then you have to look at the bottoms of your card, and you can see there's a column to the left which shows, did I match my partner's card? And there's some that have no's and some that have yes. And then there's a second column which is, did I trump or counter my opponent's card. Now, since we both did charge attacks, no one countered. No one countered the other player's attack. So we are both no on the right, but Lynn and I matched, so we are yes on the left. So we are the second row where we did a match, but no counter. Whereas our opponents are the first row where they did not match and did not counter. And as none of us matched our stance card, we don't get to do our stance. So for ours, our match but not counter, we do 8 damage and no self-damage, which is pretty nice. We're going to do a lot of damage to our opponents. Our opponents, being only the first, they do 4 damage to us and 4 damage to themselves, which means our opponents get a total of 12 damage between the damage done from our card and the damage done from their own, whereas we take only a total of 4 damage. So we reduce our damage totals on our cards. So you guys took a 12. And then we're ready to go for another round. Everybody will wind up pulling their cards back, and we go again. You keep going until one team gets to 0 or below life total. If you both make it to 0 or below life total on the same round, whoever has the lower life total is the losing team, and that is how you play a game of Dragon and Rider. Welcome back. So that was how you play a game of Dragon and Rider. So now I've got some negatives, but I've got a lot of positives too. So I want to start with the negatives so I can end on the positives. So there are some issues with this game. The very first issue I have with this game is the unbelievably restrictive player count to play the game like it is intended to be played. Now, this is kind of the nature of the beast. So the idea that the designer had, there was really no other way to do it other than make it very restrictive at a 4-player game. I have other games like this in my collection where they play similarly like this. The one that comes to mind the most is Sonar. Sonar, really, to play it the proper way, you have to play it at 4 players, and you have to play it 2 versus 2. This is a similar thing to that, where you really have to play it at 4 players, 2 versus 2, or it's not going to work. So that being said, it's really just the nature of the beast. It's just that having this restrictive player count, if you have a group of people playing games on game night on any combination other than 4, this is not going to be a game you're going to be able to pull out. So just keep that in mind. Now, another thing I want to draw on is, so the group I played it with, there wound up being, once we had wrapped our heads around the whole bluffing element and the mathematical element and the interesting way that this game plays and trying to read your opponents as well as read your partner, which I found to be thrilling. I found that to be a really cool set of mechanics and how this game plays. But once we had all wrapped our heads around it, we found that this could be a bit of a divisive group of mechanics. So for instance, Lynn, who was the least thrilled by these, she doesn't generally like bluffing mechanics in games. So you have to be playing with a specific group of 4 people that are going to be down with this rule set. It can be a bit divisive. Because I do know that bluffing games, for instance, as being one of that it is one of the main mechanics in this game, bluffing games can be a divisive type of game. So you have to be with a group of people that are into bluffing, that are in trying to read their opponents, in trying to read what their partners are going to be doing. Because if you play this with the wrong group of people, you're not going to have a good time. So that being said, I want to give a quick recommends before I go on to what is awesome about this game, before I go on to the positives. My recommends on the best place to play Dragon and Rider is at a meetup gaming group, the kind of place where you have tons of people looking to play games, where you can find people that are interested in playing the game that you brought and then play a game that they brought. You can find 3 other people that are into playing a game that has bluffing, that has reading of the other players and trying to figure out what they've done without any communication, without table talk, people that are into this kind of game and would really want to get into it. That, in my opinion, is the best place to play Dragon and Rider. So that's why I highly recommend is bringing this to a meetup gaming group, either at your local pub or local game store. Really great way to play Dragon and Rider. Now, positives. So I want to start with production. So now the glossy finish cards are very nice. And also I had talked a little bit in the intro about the fact that and I'm going to show some pictures up on the screen here. Regardless of what cards you and your partner choose, you put them together on the table, and they will make a picture that doesn't matter if you've chosen the same kind of card or different cards, but they make a full illustration that sprawls across the two cards, and that is really awesome. I love the attention to detail. I don't know if this was the idea of the designer or the artist. Let me throw out the artist in here. Was Scott Harshbarger. I hope I'm saying that right. Now, the art is really good, and I love the fact that it makes this big panoramic picture that goes across between the two cards. I really want to draw attention to that. Now, the mechanics. So, again, I talked a little bit about how nature of the beast, the necessity of this game is that it makes it difficult to get a number of players together to play it, because you have to have 4 people to play this game right. But I think it was the right call not to try to alter that. Now, again, they did put a couple of alternate ways to play in the back, including a 2-player version. I don't really recommend the 2-player version. I think you have to go whole hog into this. You got to go with the 4-player version. And the reason I'm saying that is because I think some of the mechanics here were really a stroke of genius on the part of the designer. So there's so much subtlety. The more I have looked over this and the more I have thought about it after actually playing it, the more I really feel like there is a lot of genius to the mechanics of this game. So there's little bits of subtlety in here. So for instance, now you've got the trying to figure out what your opponent has done. Did they throw out the stance just to throw you off? Did they throw the stance because that's what they're going to be aiming towards? It is very rare, by the way, to actually get a stances bonus to pay off, because if either your opponent manages to counter you, or if you're not matching what you do with the stance, you're not going to get the stance bonus to pay off. In fact, in our test games of this, we only got the stance to pay off once. And that's it's very difficult to do. So a lot of times the stance is more to try to, get inside your opponent's head psychologically and throw them off the trail. And I love that. I think that's great. But then in addition, there's in addition to trying to read your opponents, you also have to read your partner, because your partner, when you're playing the dragon and your partner is the rider, your partner is going to throw out a card to throw everybody off of that whole like, oh, well, this is definitely not the one I'm played. So, if you play the stance of, say, the charge attack, but then your partner throws out the charge attack as the card that they're not doing, suddenly everybody's like, whoa, what are they doing? But then another big part of trying to figure out what is the best card to play when you're the dragon and you're playing your attack is the initiatives. Because keep in mind, if your opponent played the charge attack, you're doing the charge attack. It has the highest initiative. Charge attack has initiative of 3, range attack has initiative of 2, and the dodge has the initiative 1. Meaning, if either player in your team plays the charge attack, you're doing the charge attack. If neither player played the charge attack, but someone played the range attack, you're doing the ranged attack. The only time you're doing a dodge is if both players played the dodge. So the dodge is going to be the rarest thing that gets done, and you have to keep that in mind, both when reading your opponents and when reading your partner. It's very important, because the dodge is going to be the least common thing to come up, while the charge attack is going to be the most common, and you have to calculate for that. In addition to calculating for what happens if we don't match versus if we match, and if we counter our opponent versus we don't counter our opponent, because of the charts on what happens for all of those situations that are on the bottom of each of the cards. There is a lot of brilliant strategy that goes on behind the scenes in what is generally a fairly easy game to learn and play, but there's like incredible amounts of depth in the way these cards interact with each other. And I think that's pretty brilliant, and I really dig that. And it's one that I am really hoping to play a lot more as time goes on, but I need to play it with the right group of people. And unfortunately, like I said, and that was one of my downsides, the group I played it with was not too jazzed about it. I was the person to rate it the highest with my group, and Lynn was the lowest, because this is really not Lynn's type of game. She's not a big fan of games that cause you to have to read other people at the table, as well as not a big fan of bluffing games. Now, she did say that her low estimation of it is really just because this is not because she thinks it's a bad game, but because it's just not the right fit for her. And this is one of those games where you really have to get the right group of people that it is the right fit for, which is why I recommend you bring it to a meetup group so you can find the right group of people to play it with and really play this game well, unless you already have a group of friends that specifically would like this style of game, in which case you're fine and that'll be awesome for you. So I was originally going to give this game a lower score than I've decided to give it. And the reason was because of the negatives of needing to have exactly 4 players to play and the negatives of needing to have really the right group of people to play. But then I decided it's not really fair to the game for how much I enjoy the very brilliant moves that went into both the production in regard to the illustrations, as well as the very brilliant moves that went into the design. So I've decided to up my score, and I'm going to give this game 8 out of 10 stars. Because I really enjoy the amount of work and the amount of playtesting that must have gone into this game, and the amount of brilliant interactions between the cards, between the different moves. I think this game is really good, but I'm doing it 8 out of 10 stars with an asterisk. You have to keep in mind, you gotta have a group of 4 people exactly to play this game, and you also have to have 4 people that are specifically down with this kind of reading your opponent, bluffing sort of game, with these heavy number sets for doing damage to each other, because there's a lot of math in this game. So if you have the right group of people, I think this game can be fantastic. Absolutely phenomenal, and that's why I'm going to give it 8 out of 10 stars. So there you go. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, either on this video or on the game of Dragon and Rider, feel free to put them in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this review and tutorial for Dragon and Rider and you'd like to see more review and tutorial videos like this, be sure to give this video a like, share it on all forms of social media, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on. Hi. Oh. Careful with them claws. They're really sharp. You're so crazy. You're so crazy. What are you doing? What are you doing? You doing puppet bloopers? You doing puppet bloopers? Puppet bloopers? Yeah? It's okay. All right, listen. Why don't you go play with your toys, okay? I gotta film one more video. Okay. I know. All right, you go on the floor, okay?